Hello friends, welcome back to this course on consumer psychology, which is funded by the Ministry of MHRD, and it's a MOOCs course. So this course was designed in such a way that we wanted to study the behavior of consumer and those psychological factors which is within the consumer and outside the consumer. How do they affect the interactions of consumers, marketers and any other stakeholder into the marketplace. Now this is lecture number 18 in this course, and lecture number 18 and the next lecture, which is 19, will be the two penultimate lectures before the course draws to an end. Now the journey in this course that we have taken was divided into two parts. We started with section 1, where we were looking at what is consumer behavior, the definition of consumer behavior. And in section 2, in the last lectures that we have done, what I have done is I have considered psychological variables. So before we start on to this particular lecture, let me give you a brief recap of what we have done in the last 17 lectures, and then we will get on with this particular lecture. So to start with, the first section, which is lecture number 1 and 2, we looked at what is a consumer. Who is a consumer first of all, and then how is it different from a shopper and a buyer. So consumers, shoppers, buyers, what is the definition of these terms, what is the meaning of these terms, and we looked at what is a product, what is the need for the product. There itself we define an underlying meaning and underlying truth behind the study of consumer psychology, and that is people are not looking for buying products, but what they are looking for is buying benefits. So in the first two lectures, we looked at what is the definition of consumer, who is a consumer, what does it do into the marketplace, what is a product, what is the concept of a product, and we also looked at how are these products positioned into the marketplace. Then we looked at what is a marketer, who is a marketer, and how does he divide consumers into manageable sections. For any marketer to sell his product, he must know whom he is selling the product to, and in that particular vein, we looked at something called market segmentation. From there, we moved on to the methodologies of research in consumer psychology. So what is the popular methodologies which we use in the research in consumer psychology. So all methodologies concerning experimental methods, concerning observation method, shadowing and so many techniques. Then lecture number 3 to 9 was focused on an important part on the reaction of the consumer, which is consumer decision making. So we started off by looking at what is need arousal, the first stage in consumer decision making, where he realizes that I want something, and from then on we looked at how does the consumer search for information about his needs. We looked at internal and external processes of information search. Then on we moved on to the process of alternative evaluation and choice, where we looked at how does the consumer decide what product to buy, how does he compare the pros and cons of any product or group of products, and how does he make the decision about buying the one product that he wants to buy. Then on we moved on to the process of post purchase evaluation. So once a consumer buys a product, how does he consume it? Once he has consumed it, those factors which are responsible for buying as well as consuming of product, how does that lead to satisfaction or dissatisfaction? And if a dissatisfaction, how does the consumer or the marketer handle this? If it is a satisfaction, again what does the consumer do about it, and what can the marketer do to improve dissatisfaction into satisfaction. From lecture 10 onwards till 9 other lectures, we will be focusing on some psychological variables which affect or which modulate the transaction of the consumer, the behavior of the consumer, the interactions of the consumer into the marketplace. And so these psychological variables, we started off section 2 by studying an important psychological variable, which is consumer perception. We looked at what is consumer perception, what factors in consumer perception decide how the consumer will buy a product, stimulus related factors, consumer related factors, person related factors, marketer related factors, other external factors, how do they affect the perception of the consumer, because perceptions are most basic in defining behavior. Then we moved on to looking at two other important variables, learning and memory and other cognitions. So, we looked at learning, memory and other cognitions, and how these principles of learning, memory and principles of storing information into the brain, organizing information, marketing information into the brain, how does that affect the behavior of the consumer or the interactions of the consumer. Further on, we moved on to the realm of something called mood and emotion. So, how does mood and emotion affect the behavior, what factors modulate the behavior of the consumer into the marketplace, the transactions, what factors decide the transactions, and how this transaction actually go ahead. The last two lectures we looked at another interesting variable, which is attitude, and we looked at how attitude is formed. In the beginning I explained the psychological variable of attitude and attitude change, and then in the next lecture, which is lecture number 17, we looked at how these attitudes or how theories of various attitudes actually reinforce the behavior of the consumer or modulate the behavior of the consumer into the marketplace. So, that was an quick recap of what we did in the past 17 lectures. The next two lectures, lecture number 18, which is the present lecture, and lecture number 19, which is upcoming, we look at communication and persuasions. Now, if you remember rightly from the last lecture, we dealt with something called persuasion. What is persuasion? Persuasion is a way of changing the attitude of anyone towards any person, place, thing, idea, concept, any of these entities. So, persuasion is basically a method of changing attitude. Now, if you remember last lecture, what we did was we looked at what is attitude, and there what I said to you, there what I explained to you is that attitudes are not that important. What is important is change of attitude, and what marketers are always looking forward for is to change consumers' attitude towards their product or to modify their attitudes that they have towards the product, because attitude change will lead to change in behavior intention, and change this behavior intention, which in turn will translate into purchase, because the idea or the core concept of any marketer is to buy the product. So, what we are going to do in this lecture is we are going to look at what are marketing communications. Up till now we have looked at 4 individual variables, 4 consumer related variables, and in this case, in this particular lecture, we are going to look at what are marketing communications and how does these marketing communications persuade the consumer to change their attitude towards the product, towards their product, and translate this behavioral change into an intention to buy, which leads to further purchase. So, let us start our lecture and go about defining some key terms in this lecture. The first term that is of interest to us is marketing communication. What is marketing communication and why is it needed? Marketing communications are any form of information, any information which is left in the marketplace or which are transmitted through media or other social carriers from the marketer towards the consumer. And what does this information do? This information provides or builds up consumers' belief. This information provides a host of information packets which the consumer require for making a purchase. Now, the consumer has a need, and to fulfill this need he is looking for a product. Marketing communications act as a bridge where the marketer puts the information packets into the marketing communication and transmits it through some media or some other form, so that the person who is in need of a product gets this information and based on this information decides what he wants to buy and what he does not. And a very important part, a very important type of marketing communication is advertisements. So, marketing communication is not the literal synonym of advertisement, rather it is comprising of advertisements. And so, not amounting to just advertisement, the definition of marketing communication can extend to reviews, to articles, to pamphlets, to word of mouth spread, all of these are marketing communications. Or sometimes even conventions or people gathering in fairs, all these ways are communicating information. So, any media, any kind of bridge which the marketer uses to transmit information packets about their products to the consumer, so the consumer can form beliefs based on that, and these beliefs can lead to formation of an attitude, and the final purchase is what is marketing communication. So, most advertisements are marketing communication. What is the role of an advertisement? What does an advertisement actually do? Most advertisements actually have two components. The first component of an advertisement is the feeling factor, and the other is the information factor. The feeling factor of an advertisement makes you feel good about it, makes you feel bad about it, makes you feel something about the idea which is being passed on, and the information packet or the information component of this marketing communication or advertisement is the actual knowledge which is transmitted through the advertisement. So, next time when you see an advertisement, take any advertisement for that matter, take the Patanjali advertisement of a toothpaste. So, Patanjali toothpaste, when it comes over, what does it do? It first shows you a toothpaste, shows you all those materials from which the toothpaste is being made, and that creates a belief, that passes a knowledge that it is made up of herbal things, because when you see that ad, it tells you that this toothpaste is made up of haldi, it's made up of all those herbal components, tulsi and so many other things, long, and these oil, that oil, that is the information part, and that builds up your belief about that component. Other than that, the advertisement will also comprise of a feeling factor. So, if it is a factual advertisement, which we will look into what is the difference between a factual and an emotional advertisement. So, if it is a factual advertisement, it will just contain information bits, a lot of information onto it, and if it is an emotional ad, then it will contain or it will highlight somebody that can change your attitude. For example, a movie star, and this movie star will plead you, will emotionally manipulate you into buying that product, and that are emotional appeals. So, this is what an advertisement is, and this is what it does. It lets consumers form an attitude towards the product, which leads to the change in purchase intention, or which leads to formation of a purchase intention, which further leads to the actual buying of a product. So, what are communication effects? What are the effects of advertisements and communication messages which are passed on or which are manufactured by marketers? So, the marketers, most marketers, what they want from these communications is that they want the communication to shape and predict the effects of communication on targeted customers. What the marketers are looking forward is to form a marketing communication, to develop a marketing communication in such a way that they can predict the behavior of the customers, predict the attitude of the customers related to their particular products. So, most marketing communication are based in this way. Most marketing communication has this goal in its definition by itself. Now, different advertisements and campaigns are designed to generate different effects. Not all advertisements are same. Look at the advertisements that you have around you. Two basic distinctions that I have given to you is a factual advertisement versus a emotional advertisement. Now, on one hand, the factual advertisement gives you matter of factly knowledge. For example, an ad about a medicine. Now, if an ad about a medicine is there, what this ad will actually focus on is knowledge. What is the medicine composed of? What is its component? What is the compound from which it is made of? Why is this compound necessary? What does the compound do? What is the good effects of it? What is the bad effects of it? What are the chances of disease curing, and that kind of information. So, matter of factly information, basic information, knowledge is what will be passed on. On the other hand, the advertisement for a fruit juice, the advertisement for chocolates, these advertisements actually capture the emotional appeal, where they show how good you will feel after eating the chocolate. So, most Amul ads, most Nestle ads, most chocolates ad, Hershey syrup ad, all these ads will actually focus on to the emotional part of it. They will generally generate a positive emotion, a high amount of emotion towards the product, and that will drive the consumer to buying it. So, that is what I am trying to tell you here. Different advertisements and or campaigns are designed to generate different effects. And what are these effects depending on? They depend on the audience and the product positioning, depending on what kind of audience I am looking at. Now, if I am making a medicine ad, it's the same medicine ad when it is made for somebody who is old, somebody who has who is an adult, young adult in the age group of let us say 20 plus. Now, the ad will be more factly, but the same advertisement or the medicine, if it is made for smaller children, it cannot be having matter of factly things. And that is why when you see that medicines for children, you see all wonderful colors into it, all Mickey Mouse and so many things onto it. That is because small children do not go for matter of factly. So, depending on the kind of audience and the product positioning, different kinds of ads are made by marketers to cope up with, to deal with, to serve the purpose of different market segments or different consumers. Now, once an advertisement is made and it is transmitted through a messenger, it is transmitted through bridge, it will affect the consumer in some way. It will change consumers' attitude. It will form new attitudes in the consumers. Now, every marketing communication has a desired response. And so, what is the meaning of all communications? What is the need for marketing communication? Marketing communication, most marketing communications actually desire a response. And what are the most desired response? One of these responses that I am going to name is the target of most marketing communication. The desired response could be increase awareness. One of the problem or one of the hindrances is that people sometimes do not know what a product can do for them. And so, increase awareness is one good thing, is one target of marketing communication. So, that you tend to know that a product is available, a marketer is available, right. Suppose tomorrow I want to go to Mars. Now, if I want to do that, I have no one to take me there. So, if a company tomorrow decides that it can take people to Mars, it can put an ad there, and so people like me who wants to move to a new planet because they are fed up with the present planet, they can go to this company and ask them, or at least know about this company, that this is a way of escaping this particular planet. So, increase awareness. The fact that one desired response is the fact that a particular product exists. Another interesting response, another interesting output of most marketing communication is brand acceptance. How much acceptance of a particular brand is there? How much acceptance of a particular product, or can people accept the particular product? The third obvious response of a particular product or marketing communication, the target of marketing communication is brand preference. And what is that? These marketing communications are made in such a way that people preferred their brand over other brands. And so, those messages that are there from famous ice cream companies, I am taking an example, is meant to be made in such a way that people start preferring Ben and Jerry's over Amul, or preferring Haagen-Dazs ice cream versus Ben and Jerry's. So, brand preference, the idea that they start preferring the particular brand which is making the advertisement. So, one of the goal is to make the attitude change, to do something in a way that people start feeling positive about the brand which is making the marketing communication, and people not only start feeling good about it, but also preferring this brand. Also, increasing brand trials. Another interesting fact of marketing communication or output of marketing communication is that people start trying their brand. A new brand of clothes comes into the marketplace. What it will do is, it will make a communication in such a way, say, which encourages consumers to come into the showroom and try their brand. Once they try their brand, because once you do a trial, you will like it, maybe you like it, some people will like it, and they will actually prefer the brand. So, trial is an essential component of the purchase. And so, one of the output or one of the response of marketing communication, desired response of marketing communication is brand trial and brand adoption. And the last interesting fact or last response of most marketing communication or advertisements for our purpose is brand adoption. It basically means that people not only prefer the brand, people not only like the brand which is making the advertisement, people also adopt it, people also think about it and start using it. So, these are what is a marketing communication. This is the definition of what marketing communications are, and then what they actually, how they are made, and what are the response, what is it that marketers actually want from most marketing responses. Now, there are a number of models which have been proposed which actually define this marketing communication or the effects of marketing communication. Now, if I define it in a very simple way, the marketing communications are ruled by certain models, and they are affected in turn by factors of the message, factors of the media, and factors of the source. Certain message factors, what the message is, what the information packet is, certain source factors, where the message is coming from, who is putting on the message, and certain media factors, for example, the bridge, the person who is carrying the vehicle, who is carrying the message. All these factors affect marketing communication or the models of marketing communication. And so, in a very simple way, if I look into it, if this is what my marketing communication is, and these are model number 1, 2, 3, these are affected by both source factors, this is who is putting in the message, who is putting in the marketing communication, message factors, what is the message which is passed on from the marketer, or what is the content of the advertisement, and then the third factor is media factors, which is basically what kind of media is being used, whether television is used, whether newspaper is used, some other kind of media. So, what kind of media vehicle or what kind of vehicle is being used for transmitting this information. So, this marketing communication is explained by these models, and in this particular lecture we will see 4 different models of marketing communication which define marketing communication, which defines the way marketing communication are meant to be and what they can do, what they are composed of, what the factors, and so on and so forth. In the next lecture, we will look at all those factors which affect marketing communication and how do they affect marketing communication. So, the first model of marketing communication that we are going to deal today is called the hierarchy of effect model. Now, what is the hierarchy of effect model? It is a very old model which was proposed around the 1800s, 1890s I think, or early 1900s, late 1800s. And what is the hierarchy of effect model? Now, advertisement as a method of marketing communication started very early on. In the first part of the 19th century, advertisement was a major method of passing on information about products. With the coming of the industrial revolution, new products came in, and so new ways of living came in, a new idea of what an industry set up, and so what was desired is how this information is passed on from the marketer to the consumer. And so, the first model which was used, which was designed, was called the hierarchy of effect model, which explains how marketing communication really works, what are the components of this marketing communication, and what are the factors affecting it. So, what is the hierarchy of effect model? Let us have a look into it. So, researchers have developed a series of hierarchy of effects model that explain different level of consumer responses to advertising. So, different level of consumer responses to advertising is explained by hierarchy of effect model. What this model says is at different levels, how does consumer interact, or what is the reaction of consumer to different steps of a marketing advertisement, of a marketing communication, that is explained by this model. Now, as I explained to you, the first model was developed as early as 1890, and this model still in use is called the AIDA model, the AIDA model. What is the AIDA model? It is the first and the most primitive model of marketing communication. What is this model? This model has 4 parts: an attention part, an interest part, a desire part, and an action part. What does it all mean? The model says, very briefly, what the model says is that for any marketing communication, the goal of any marketing communication is 4 in numbers, is a 4-part process. It starts with creating awareness, or the first part is creating awareness is the next model, which is called the Levine and Steiner model. Now, in the AIDA model, the first part is A, which is called attention. Now, any marketing communication or all marketing communications, the first step of any marketing communication should be to capture the attention of consumers. Most advertisements, the first step for an advertisement success is that can the ad capture the attention of people, because if it can capture the attention of people, people will further think of processing it. This is not far from traditional psychology. If you look into how perception progresses, and when I discussed perception, the process of perception, the first step in perception is attention. If you do not pay attention, there will be no perception, because all information which is being processed, which is being sent to the human brain or the human retina, if it is visual information, that is decided by or that is modulated by attention. Attention decides what information goes in and not. And so, for that matter, on a similar vein, advertisements have the first effect, which is called attention. So, is the advertisement good enough to capture people's attention? If it is, then further progression will happen. People will look into it, form behavior about it, form attitude about it, and think about it. If it cannot, then that is of not good. So, the first step in any ad is to capture consumers' attention. Once an ad has captured consumer attention through some of its processes, through some of its factors, through some of its form, the next step is creating interest. Whether the ad can create interest in people. Now, there are lots of ads which run around and which does not create any interest in people. For example, an LIC ad will create no interest in children, or an ad which is of chocolate milk, or maybe an ad of small people cloth or children cloth will not create any kind of special interest in younger people who do not have children, right. And so, the another interesting thing, another interesting fact for an advertisement is to create interest in people, whether people get interested with that ad. If it is not interesting, it can capture, an ad can capture your attention, but it may not be able, or it could happen that it may not be able to capture your interest or generate interest in you. And so, the next step is the advertisement creating interest? If it does, the next step is, with interest, can the ad also create desire? It may happen that an ad creates an attention, you notice it and you are able to create interest, it creates interest into you, you want to look further into it. Creating interest means that you want to indulge with an ad, indulge with the product, know about the product more, and so you do something about it, and when it creates interest, you start doing something about it. The third thing is, does it create desire? Does it motivate you enough so that you do something about it? An ad could be there which could capture your attention and make interest in you, develop interest in you, but you are not motivated enough to look forward for it. And that is what happened in the earlier part of this century in the financial sector, when people were not interested in the fixed deposit scheme or the ELSS scheme, which is nowadays mutual funds, for example, for that matter, is a popular thing right now. But 3 years, 4 years previous to this year or now, people are not interested in it, because mutual funds or LIC funds or banking financial funds were not able to create desire in people. They were creating interest, but not desire. So, desire is that term which makes a person motivated enough to act. And the fourth part is action. An ad not only should create desire, but also should create an action orientation in people, which means that not only should people be interested in that particular ad, have the desire to look into that particular product, but also should go ahead and buy, do things in such a way that leads to the final purchase of the product. And so, this is what the AIDA model says. It says that any ad has to go through these 4 processes. Now, this is a very simple model, and so Levenger and Steiner came up with a new model of the hierarchy of effects, and this model is still called the hierarchy of effect model. But some of the terms in this hierarchy of effect has now been changed. So, let us look at what this new model is all about. Now, a more complex model breaks down the effect into 5 sequential stages. Steiner model of hierarchy of effects, what it does is, it breaks down marketing communication, the effects from marketing communication into 5 different stages, and consumer responses are different for all these stages. Now, what does it model say? It says that to be successful, advertising must have its objective the causation of one or more of these 5 effects on target consumers. What this model says is that for any advertisement to be successful, one or more of these effects which are outlined in this particular model should take place for a successful advertisement to happen. So, this particular model is an extension of the AIDA model because it has 5 steps, the earlier model has 4 steps, and so what this model says is that an advertisement which is called successful has to evoke any one or one or more of these effects which are shown by this particular model. Now, what are the 5 steps? What are the 5 sequential stages? The first stage of this model is awareness. Any advertisement, successful advertisement should be able to generate awareness into people. What do I mean by this? Gaining attention for a brand and getting its name known are prerequisite for inducing positive consumer responses. The first step that has to happen in an advertisement is creating awareness, whether the consumer know about this product. And that is why you have seen so many ads which do not sell anything, but just creates awareness. The Muthoot Finance Group ad, what does it do? It tells you that Muthoot Finance Group is a group which has so many products and it manufactures so many things. The Tata Sons Group ad, what does it do? It does not sell anything, it does not sell trucks to you. What does it do? It tells you that Tata has these many companies, these many products, and we are one particular group which are indulging so and so products. Aditya Birla Group, what does it do? The ad says that we are Aditya Birla, we are towards, this is our motto, this is what we want to do, and we have these products. So, we have a telecom product, we have a cement product, we have a manufacturing product, and so on and so forth, and so this is what it is. And so, most advertisement should have this, or at least should target in this way. Advertisement should be made in this way, which creates awareness. The second step of this AIDA model, this Steiner AIDA model, is acceptance. Not only should the advertisement should create awareness, it should also create acceptance of the product in the consumer's mind. Now, a brand achieves acceptance only when it comes to mind as a viable choice. And how is acceptance measured? Acceptance is measured in terms of the fact that when a product is thought about, when a consumer thinks about a product, when a consumer desires a product, the product which is being added, the product whose ad is coming, comes to mind immediately in the consumer mind. If he does that, if it happens, when I think about for example, when I think about light, bulb, Philips comes to mind, and so this is creating awareness, this is creating acceptance, because I have accepted the ad of Philips, and so when I think about light, when I think about electric bulb, the Philips ad comes into mind, or Philips bulb comes into mind. When I think about car, Maruti comes into mind, and so this is creating acceptance. So, how is acceptance measured? It is measured through the fact that how quickly the product which is being advertised comes to your mind when we think of the product category that it belongs to, right. And this is quite normal. This is, if in consumer psychology or in psychology itself, this is called the exemplar. Now, if you remember the semantic memory network, in the semantic memory network we describe something called an exemplar. So, when I think about car, the exemplar of car is Maruti, and so this product comes in because I have accepted, and this is called acceptance. When I think about scooter, Bajaj name comes in, and that is acceptance, because I have accepted that product. I have not only aware of that, I have also created, the company Bajaj has created acceptance in my mind towards their product. The third step, which is here in this model, is called the preference. Now, after a consumer's awareness and acceptance of a brand, markets indulge in making the most desirable in the consumer's consideration set. Now, not only would the consumer be aware of the product and accept it, consumers will prefer it over other brand, and then only a marketer, an ad is successful. So, if 2 ads are coming, one ad, and so I have written here California almond, 2 almond companies are coming in, ads for 2 companies. If California Almond is one company, if it can make an ad in such a way that when 2 ads are, or Tata group of health products are also selling this almond, and California Almond is another company which is selling this California Almond, and if it is possible for California Almond to shape their products in such a way, so to advertise the product in such a way saying that it is a healthy snack or whatever, in a matter of factly way, whatever it can do, if it can successfully make the consumer prefer it over some other product, then it has achieved the role of preference. So, those ads which can motivate the consumer to prefer it, to prefer their products over any other product, is created preference. So, one of the steps or one of the part in the AIDA model is creating preferences, and the fourth step in the AIDA model is buying intention, inducing buying intention and trial and purchase. Now, advertisements creates an intention to buy if it brings consumers to a point just short of actual purchase. Advertisement should be made in such a way, marketing communication should be made in such a way that people just do not know about it, just are not aware about it, just do not accept it and prefer it, but they also indulge in buying it, they also develop this buying behavior. So, the advertisement is made in such a way that it should influence the consumer in such a way that they just do not know about it, they not only know about it and accept it, they also decide to buy it, and that is brings the consumer to a point of actual purchase. Intention to buy does not always translate into purchase, but reinforce acceptance and preference in future purchase. So, the actual measure is not purchase, because intention to purchase may not actually transfer into purchase. Let us say Apple iPhone, now it creates awareness into me, I accept it, I prefer it, but and I have an intention to buy it, but when I look at the price, I decide not to buy it right now, I will buy it when I get a bonus. Next bonus comes in. What has happened here is that the advertisement of Apple iPhone has been successful, because what it has done is it has created an intention to purchase in me, and this intention will actually reinforce me buying Apple iPhone in future. That is what it has achieved. So, I do not buy it immediately, the intention to buy has actually reinforced my behavior or will reinforce my behavior in later future, and that is what a goal of most of these marketing communications are, or that is another part of the AIDA model. So, most AIDA model goes through it. So, 4 steps into this model starts with awareness, acceptance, preference and buying intention and final trial or purchase. So, this is what my model will look like. It will start with awareness, go to acceptance, preference, buying intention and trial and purchase. So, buying intention may or may not lead to purchase, it may lead to trials or it may lead to future preference for the brand or actual purchase. Now, the next model of interest is called the integrated information response model. What is this model? The integrated information response model is a more effective than hierarchy of effect model and captures a diverse range of consumer responses. The integrated information response model or the IIR model is actually a more viable model, a more effective model in comparison to the hierarchy of effect model in explaining the effects of marketing communication. What are these? The model proposes that, what is the proposal of the model? That making purchase decisions, consumers combine information from direct purchase experience and marketing communication. So, when consumers are buying a product, it is not only advertisements that they concentrate on, they actually also look at the positive feedback or feedback of any kind that they have from the actual purchase experience. So, their purchase experience combined by what the ad is saying about the product combined together will actually decide how consumers make purchase decision, how consumers actually make a purchase. It also explains that different levels of hierarchy may affect cognitive, affective or behavioral components in the decision making process. It says that this model explains that it may happen, the advertisement may only affect the behavioral component of an attitude, behavioral component of a consumer, or it may affect the belief system, the buying intention system, or it may affect the affective system. An advertisement could be such that it just affects the consumer's affective part, which means that the consumer feels good about it and does nothing about it, he feels good about the product. So, different levels of the ad or different hierarchies may affect different components of consumers attitude or consumers response towards the particular advertisement or towards the particular marketing communication. Now, this is the detailed structure of the integrated information response model. Information from source comes in terms of advertising and it passes through two steps. There are two responses that can happen. One response could be advertisement can lead to 5B part directly, which means that direct experience and advertisement, they combine together, leads to high belief about the particular product, which leads to higher order belief system, higher order cognitions, higher order feeling and a commitment towards the product. Or it can lead to lower belief system, lower beliefs, lower effect, which may produce trials and then may produce higher order belief and higher order cognitions and commitment. What is the meaning of all this? The meaning of all this is an advertisement can make a person react immediately in terms of feeling good about the product and getting higher information or knowing more about the product, forming higher order cognitions about the product, which can lead to commitment to buying the product. Or what could happen is buying a product can lead to formation of lower order beliefs and lower order effect. So, he may not believe all what is said in the advertisement. He may have very little trust on the information which is passed on the advertisement and may not feel that good about the advertisement. So, what he does is he starts doing a trial. It takes a trial of that particular product, and once the trial has been done and it is successful, he starts feeling more better about what the advertisement is saying, starts developing more knowledge about that product and leads to final commitment of buying. So, 2 or 3 variations are there, 2 or 3 steps are there, 2 or 3 paths to this model is there. We will look into all these parts one by one. So, the first path is cognition, effect and commitment. The 5B path, marketer information source from the market goes to advertisement and comes to 5B. Here what happens is the marketing communication objective is to inform and to educate. Now, in the cognition, effect, commitment model or this step, the main objective of the advertisement is to inform and educate people and consumers about the product and its benefit. So, here the main model is in this kind of model or in this kind of stepping, what the advertisement is desiring to do is to inform and educate consumers that a product of this kind exists, and if you use this product, this is the benefit that is going to happen. What happens here? The consumer sees an advertisement. First step, consumers actually have an advertisement, immediately accepts the information, sees the advertisement, accepts the information and forms higher order beliefs, leading to higher order effect and commitment. Look at an Apple ad, I as a consumer look into the Apple ad and immediately accepts the information that Apple is saying. Apple says that it is the best phone, it has the best quality features, best processor, immediately I accept it, forms higher order beliefs. I feel that I form belief system saying that Apple is the best company, no company can come near it, not even Google, not even any other company, not even MI or whatever companies are there. Apple is the best company. Whatever information it is passing through the message, through its advertisement, I accept that, form higher order beliefs, form very high or beliefs about Apple products, form higher order effect, start feeling very good about this product and make a commitment to buy it. First step, immediately the advertisement give me enough reason to trust it and to feel good about it and make a commitment. This is how this particular model works, the cognition, effect, commitment model. What happens then? To achieve this kind of an effect, an advertisement needs to be very convincing. As I said, most advertisements lack that. Most advertisements lack this factor. Also, if you are buying a high involvement product, a product which has high level of risk, people will not go through cognition, effect, commitment model, because what happens here is that belief leads to cognition, which leads to effect. And so, when a product which requires a lot of money, a lot of commitment from your side and has a large amount of risk, for those kind of products, this model is not suffice. So, here an advertisement for this kind of product needs to be very convincing and must be targeted to very receptive audience. Here 2 things have to be for this thing to work. Not only the advertisement should be very convincing, should have information into it which is very convincing and emotional appeal which is very high. It should also be targeted to receptive audiences, which means that only targeted audiences, right. And so, all those advertisements which are of toys dedicated to small children are using this method. So, children look at the toys, they form immediately they form this idea that this toy is very good, they cry, they make this belief that the toy is good, they cry, they feel good about it and make the parent purchase it, and this is one good example. The second pathway to this model is called the cognition trial effect commitment. This is the general format of how most advertisement really work. The goal of the advertisement should be to induce trial, and here the goal of this advertisement is to induce trial, because only after trial consumers will feel good about it and form positive attitudes about it, form higher order beliefs and then actually go ahead and purchase it. Following exposure to a marketing communication, so after looking at a marketing advertisement, the consumer forms lower order beliefs. The consumers slightly trusts what is being presented in the ad, an effect which may induce product trial, and starts feeling a little bit good about that particular advertisement. What will happen if that happens? The consumer will go for a trial. So, he knows that a product is there, accepted the product is there, forms some kind of a belief, information, some kind of a relation with the product and feels a little bit good about it or bad about it. Bad generally he will not progress, but he feels a little bit good about it, and so he decides to take a trial. Let us see if this product works or not. After a consumer tries the product and has direct experience, he accepts or rejects the message claim. So, after the product trial, either the consumer accepts what the advertisement is saying or rejects what the consumer is saying. So, in car ad which says that Maruti is a fuel efficient car, gives you luxury, that will induce something called trial. So, I will believe what Maruti has to say partially, feel good about Maruti and then go to a Maruti showroom, take the actual car which is of interest, take it for a test drive, trial, and after driving it for say 5 to 10 kilometers or 15 kilometers at certain varying speeds, I then decide that yes, advertisement was saying good, whatever the advertisement was saying is convincing, and then I decide to actually commit, form higher order beliefs and higher order effects, start trusting it more, start feeling good about it more and then decide to buy it. This is how the process works. So, acceptance, in this case acceptance of the message, acceptance of the advertisement strengthens lower order beliefs to higher order beliefs, which upon memory activation results in higher order effect and translates into commitment. So, once I do the product trial, I believe what the advertisement is saying is good, which leads me to feel good about the product and the final commitment or intent to buy, a positive intent to purchase, which may turn into actual purchase or may not turn into actual purchase, but I will feel positive about purchasing of a Maruti car, and that is how the cognition trial effect commitment works. The next is cognition trial, worst kind of advertisements or worst kind of model. The marketer has multiple goals here. What does the marketer actually want here? To reinforce initial beliefs, to start beliefs, to start a belief system. People do not know about this product, so a belief system is built about the brand's attributes and benefits, strengthen positive attitude. It also is done, these kind of advertisements are also made, or the idea behind this kind of advertisement is to strengthen positive attitude. People start feeling positive about the product and reinforce commitment, so that people, if people have seen this product before, this kind of ads will actually, or ad focused on this kind of a paradigm will actually reinforce their purchase intent which they have had previously. The model shows a transition between trial and direct experience that leads to the formation of higher order beliefs and effect. Here what does the marketer do? In this case, the consumer actually tries a product, does not get benefit or does not get the desired benefit and tries some other product, and it goes on trying different products, or within the product also different classes, different subcategories. For example, Nescafe, this is a product. So, I will try the decaf, then I will try some other form, the Irish Nescafe form, the main Nescafe form, the sweet Nescafe, the dark coffee and so on and so forth. So, I may go on from trying from one subcategory to some other category and so on and so forth. The model shows a transition between trial and direct experience. So, trial leads to direct experience, that leads to the formation of higher order belief. So, after trying for so many things, then I finally decide what to buy and what not to buy. The consumer using this model often switches between brand. That is what I was explaining to you. In this case, what happens is belief is formed, but the consumer actually never forms the commitment. What he does is he starts trying, or he is involved in trying between different products. The third model that we discussed today is called the extended dual mediation model. What does the model do? The model argues that audience exposed to an ad reacts to an ad emotionally. The first step of this model, it's actually a 5-step. It has 5 constructs. The model has 5 constructs. It starts with the construct of something called cognition towards or beliefs towards the ad and feeling towards the ad, which is followed by feeling towards the brand and beliefs towards the brand, which initially is started by something called the affect and which further leads to the purchase of the brand. So, this model starts by first explaining that any ad presented to people creates an emotional reaction. The first step that an ad does is creates an emotional reaction. Now, this feeling plays an important role in influencing thoughts about the ad as well as the attitude towards the ad. Now, as you see an ad which invigorates you, which emotionally captures you in some way, you start feeling something about that ad, and then you start believing or having some knowledge about that ad, gathering some knowledge about that ad and develop a particular feeling about that ad. So, that ad which is emotionally connected you in some way, that will lead to thoughts about the ad, which will further lead to attitude towards the ad. Further on, the attitude towards the ad is further influenced by the kind of thoughts generated about the ad. Also, the attitude of the ad is not only affected, the attitude of the ad is not only directly affected by the effect, the emotions that is generated by the ad, it is also influenced through the thoughts that you generate towards the ad. When you see an ad, when you see a puppy or the Vodafone puppy, it creates feeling into you, and this feeling leads to a certain belief about Vodafone and a positive feeling towards the puppy. So, it leads to an attitude. It not only leads to cognitions about the ad, which means that the belief that Vodafone is a good company, it also leads an attitude towards the ad. How do you feel about that? How the company is, because the ad will tell you, the way the ad is made will tell you something about the company, and so that is attitude towards that. How do you feel about that? This will lead to the thoughts about the ad as well as the attitude toward the ad, in turn influence the formation of audience thoughts about the brand and attitude towards the brand. The ad will, how you feel about the ad or your attitude towards the ad, which is composed of not only the belief but also the feeling that you have the ad, will also tell you, will also further lead to an attitude towards the brand. So, the ad, the puppy ad, the pug ad of Vodafone will not only generate beliefs toward what the ad has to say, but also the brand Vodafone and attitude towards the particular brand Vodafone. Attitude towards the brand finally plays a significant role in the formation of intention to purchase. So, when you see this pug ad where several pugs are running after the person who is holding the phone, you feel good about the ad, you feel good about the person in the ad, you think about the person in the ad, you think about the puppies in the ad and the person who is taking this network and running around, all those things. That will lead to some attitude towards Vodafone, which is actually manufacturing this ad, which is manufacture that ad, and belief about Vodafone, that it will, since all those pugs are there when he makes a call, which actually these pugs are now represented into networks, and that explains you that these pugs are actually networks, and that explains that Vodafone, what it wants to convey is that everywhere you go with your phone, the networks will follow you. That is the simple message that it wants to put forward, and so your attitude towards the brand will be developed of this, and the feeling with the cute little pugs will also be developed into you, and that will lead to the final attitude towards the brand, which will lead to the purchase intention, whether you want to buy that particular company service or not. Now, marketers use the model by developing ads that trigger a key emotion which makes the audience think positive about the brand and which influences purchases. And so, marketers in case of Vodafone, what they have done is they have used or Zuzu ad. If you look into the Zuzu ad, the creativity comes in terms of the Zuzus, and so you look into that, you laugh, a positive emotion is created into you when you look into this laughing actually in the way it is demonstrated, that wherever you go these Zuzus will come and help you out. That shows that the Airtel is a very good company which actually is going to I am sorry, it is not Airtel, it is Vodafone is a good company which is going to be there present for you wherever you go, and so these people will go and help you in all possible ways, and so your attitude towards the brand also is improved, which leads to finally purchasing the particular service from Vodafone. Unfortunately, BSNL does not has an ad, or it has but nobody sees it. So, this is how this model actually goes about explaining the extended dual model. So, extended dual mediation model, it starts with an effect. So, an advertisement creates an effect which leads to your belief about the particular ad and attitude to the ad. The belief about the ad also leads to this change in the attitude towards the ad, which leads to cognition towards the brand, belief towards the brand, and attitude towards the brand, which finally leads to the purchase of the particular brand of interest. The last model that we discuss in today's lecture is called the elaboration likelihood model. So, what is the model? The model illustrates that there are two routes to persuasion. The model says that any advertisements, the role of any advertisement is persuasion, and this route to persuasion is two. There are two ways of persuading people. Central route processes are effective for factual messages, as messages are remembered as they contain quality arguments which are substantiated by convincing evidence. So, one way of convincing people, one way of approaching people through ads is using the central route processing. Here factual information is given, for example, an medicine ad. Now, here factual informations are given, and so these ads directly hit upon the consumer because it gives enough information, and these informations are quality informations which are substantiated by convincing evidence. So, a medicine ad says that it has ibuprofen, and so ibuprofen is a painkiller, and so it gives you enough information, FDA approved this, that kind of substantiated information says that this is good, this particular medicine is good, and so this is using the central route of advertisement. There is also something called the peripheral route of processing. Now, these kind of ads use something called the emotional appeal. Here people are not interested, for people who are not interested in actually understanding what the ad has to say, emotional appeal is used, and so here humor is used sometimes, or at other times fear is used, or some other emotional appeal is used, mockery is used, or sensualness is used. So, other kind of things, the emotional appeal is used that makes a positive impact by making the consumer feel good. So, all those Shah Rukh Khan ads about chappals, certain kind of slippers, or Lux Banyan and all those things where Amitabh Bachchan comes in actually uses a peripheral route, where you look into Amitabh Bachchan, you understand that he also wears Lux whatever Ganji and so on and so forth, and so you also start wearing it because Lux Ganji is not that risky, buying it is not that risky, and so it uses the not the factual appeal but the emotional appeal. Now, the elaboration likelihood model, there are two conditions which affects elaboration likelihood model: motivation and ability. For any ad to be perceived through the emotional likelihood model, what it says is that people should have the motivation to look at the ad and the ability to understand the ad. Now, consumers are likely to process cognitively a message if they are motivated to do so, and if they are able to clearly distinguish among the product benefits it promises. If a consumer does not have the ability to cognitively process a message, then this particular model is not going to work. So, the model works, or most ads work, because people should have the motivation to process information. So, consumers are likely to process cognitively a message if they are motivated to do so, and if they are able to clearly distinguish among product benefits and it promises. Then a central route is used, and that kind of is matter of factly ads, and so that is what the thing is. So, motivation should be there, or the ability to perceive message should be there in the consumer. If those are not there, then any ad is of no use. Also, if consumers are not able to process a message and they are not able to distinguish their merits, then they are more likely to absorb it peripherally than centrally. If a consumer understands what the ad says, involves with the ad, gets involved with the ad, understands what it is saying, works towards it, then the central route is used. But if he is not able to understand what the ad is saying, does not get involved with the ad, in those cases the peripherals route is used and the ad is still forced onto the consumer. For example, if I want to sell KYC chappal, what I will do is I will call in Salman Khan, he acts and says KYC chappal is something some good, and so here the consumer doesn't want to understand that, and so he trusts that Salman Khan uses, and so he uses using that ad. And so the advertisement is made in such a way, the scope of the advertisement or the requirement of the advertisement is that people should not think too much about KYC chappal. What they should do is they should actually be focused on Salman Khan, who would appeal people in a particular way to buy the chappals. So, this is how the elaboration likelihood model really works. Information about the product has low ability to process information, high ability to process information. If consumers have high ability to information processing, central route to persuasion is used and high motivation process is required here, that leads to enduring attitude formation towards the products. People will use the central route of persuasion, people who use the central route of persuasion for looking at ad, they have longer, more stable attitude about products. On the other hand, low ability to process information uses the peripheral route to persuasion, people have low motivation, and so your weak or very weak attitude about the product is there, which may change from time to time. Now, motivation to process a message is basically dependent on two factors. How much motivated you are to look at a particular message is dependent on the relevance of the message, whether the message that is coming to you is relevant or not. If the message is not relevant at all, if the message is of no use to you, people are very less motivated to process an ad. For example, small children, give them an LIC ad, what do they do with it? Women, give them a ELSS ad, what do they do with it? Men, give them an ad about some baking thing or how to make clean floors and all, what do they do with it? Right? And so that kind of a thing. So, how much relevant the message is, and second is, does the consumer have a high need for cognition? Also, ads depend upon the fact that whether the consumer has a high need for cognition, whether the consumer actually wants to see the ad, actually wants to understand what the ad is saying. There are consumers who do not have very high need for cognition, and for them the emotional appeal is used and the emotional factors are used for promoting that. Now, in this particular lecture, what we did was we looked at what are communication effects. What is it which is advertisement, what is the meaning of advertisement and how does it really work, what is the way in which advertisements work, what is marketing communication and how does it work. We looked at the various models, 4 different models which proposes the effectiveness of an advertisement, how does advertisement work, what does it do, how does it make attitude changes and how does it promote people to buy certain things, to buy certain products and so on and so forth. What we also did here is that we defined the different models. So, starting with the AIDA model where we looked at awareness, intent, desire and action, to looking at the modified AIDA model where awareness and acceptance leads to purchase a trial, to defining the IIA model, the information integrated model of communication and persuasion, where we looked at how this information integration or integrated information actually decides how messages are processed by people, to looking at the extended dual model where we looked at cognitions about ad and cognitions about brand and how these cognitions about ad and cognition towards brand, they actually define our way of perceiving ads and forming intentions about ad or acting onto the ads. And then further on, the elaboration likelihood model which says that different ads have different scopes. Different ads are designed in such a way that they have different scopes. For one ad, one kind of ad, it uses the central route for processing and it presents facts to people. People look at this fact and they react to this fact and based on that fact it forms an advertisement. They form a particular attitude. On the other hand, there are certain ads which are made in such a way that they are actually promising, they are actually focusing on to the emotionality component. And so, what they tend to do is influence the consumer in an emotional way, and this influence, this emotional influence actually leads the consumer to form the intent to buy. So, it is basically the emotional feeling that they develop towards the ad which makes them buy a product. So, in total what we did was we looked at marketing communications, we looked at how advertisements are made and what is the scope of an advertisement, what is the response from an advertisement and what can an advertisement do. In the next lecture that we will come up with, we will look at several factors, as I promised to you that these effects of communication, messaging effects, are influenced by several factors. So, next lecture, which is the last lecture, should be the last lecture in this series, what we will do is we will look at 3 different segments. We will look at media factors, which is the vehicle of carrying the advertisement. So, different media factors and how do they influence advertisements or marketing communications. We look at source factors, the person who creates the ad. How does the source factors, how does this person who creates the ad, how much control does it have on an ad, and how can it influence the way an ad is perceived. And then message factors, what is being said in an ad, how much role does it play, what is being said in an ad, how does it play a role, what role does it play into generating a marketing communication or influencing purchases or influencing a consumer to develop a positive intent towards buying and buying a product. So, that is all for today from here. Thank you.